Good evening, everyone. Once again, we welcome you inside Studio B here at Milford TV for this week's edition of the Milford Informer. I am Tim Coet. We have an absolutely jam-packed show for you this week, so let's not waste any time. Here is this week's Top Stories Rundown. Tonight, we'll show you part one of a three-part series featuring a panel discussion revolving around a proposed change in start times for the Milford Public Schools. Also tonight, we will have a Milford TV member report on the recently held Milford Regional Medical Center Auxiliary Spring Fashion Show. And also tonight, you'll hear from a trio of students from the Hopedale DECA program as they look for the community's help to raise money for an exciting educational opportunity. Recently, we had an opportunity to host a panel discussion here at our studio with a group of experts to discuss a possible shift in the start times for the schools throughout the district here in Milford. The panel, which was comprised of school officials, members of the community, and experts in a variety of fields, covered a wide range of issues that have been discussed as part of this proposed plan. Over the next few weeks, we will show you this panel discussion in 3 installments, so here is part 1 of the school start time panel discussion. Wanted to do tonight is bring you a roundtable discussion with a lot of the experts who have been really delving into this issue, and so we can bring as much information as possible to the Milford community. So we have a panel of 6 here tonight that we're going to be having this discussion with over the course of the evening. So I want to open things up first with the Assistant Superintendent for Milford Schools, Craig Consigli. Craig, welcome. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, how this topic first came about within the Milford Schools.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. Sure. It actually first came about with a presentation from Dr. Perriello. Dr. Perriello came to school committee and kind of shed some light on some recent research about adolescence and sleep habits of adolescents and how school start times affect, in a lot of different ways, behaviors for adolescents and social emotional health for adolescents. So from there, we formed a small committee. And I say small, but when we started, we had 16 people, I believe. Anyway, we had some staff members, we had some parents, we had a student on the panel. She since has graduated, but then from there, at some of our work with the committee, we looked at a lot of the research. We studied some different communities and looked at start times from a lot of different communities in Massachusetts. We sent out a survey to students, staff, and parents. And now we're kind of at the point where we have some recommendations to make to the school committee and the town. So.
That's great. And so continuing down the line now, we also have Jim Legore with us this evening. Jim, of course, part of the Milford School Committee, also part of this committee as well to explore these school start time changes. And Jim, really from a school committee standpoint, what were maybe some of the initial thoughts from the committee when this first came along? And now as the research has sort of been ongoing and new opinions have been developed, talk a little bit from the school committee perspective, what maybe the concerns have been.
Well, so the school committee's actually been very supportive of it. We had a number of discussions. We had the panel in. Dr. Perriello has been a very active voice in the, in developing momentum for this initiative. So we're concerned about, as Craig had mentioned, social emotional well-being and health, as well as academic success. So, from a initiative perspective, we're all very much on board, and from a deployment perspective, we're trying to ferret out some of the roadblocks that we think might be an issue moving forward. We've all had lengthy discussions regarding whether enrichment and extracurricular activities will be impacted, but we continue to have those discussions and looking for ways to remove roadblocks as we deploy that initiative.
And we'll definitely get to some of those details as we move along. But we also have Dr. Perriello with us, and Dr. Perriello, obviously a lot of medical data, a lot of issues like that are driving this discussion right now. Can you give us maybe a little bit of a brief overview of maybe from your perspective why moving these start times would really be beneficial to students?
Sure. My name is Phil Perriello. I'm a pediatrician. I have been for over 50 years. I'm a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics for about 50 years as well. The National Sleep Foundation, as well as the American Academy of Pediatrics, has determined that adolescents need to have 8.5 to 9.5 hours of sleep per night in order to function well. And this means that children that go to sleep or try to go to sleep at 11 or 12 o'clock at night and have to be up at 6 or so, or certainly before 7 in order to get to school early, are definitely not getting enough sleep. And this applies to all the adolescents, all the middle school kids, as well as the high school kids. It doesn't matter what they're doing for sports or otherwise. This applies to all the kids. So it turns out that in order for them to get a proper night's sleep, which requires 8.5 hours plus, the adolescents really cannot fall asleep biologically because of their circadian rhythm. They cannot fall asleep prior to 11 o'clock at night. This is very much unlike 7 or 8 year old or less that does not have to have any incentive to go to sleep. They can go to sleep much earlier because of the melatonin that comes out of the body at the proper time. But with adolescents, the melatonin doesn't come out until 11. So again, in order for them to get a good night's sleep, if they're going to fall asleep at 11 or somewhere around there, the school start times have to be somewhere around 8:30 or later. There have been many studies done to show what the benefits might be for this. There are many states across the country that have already changed their times to 8:30 or later, and it goes to prove that the later the start time, the more benefit you get. And my own personal feeling about it is that if you just move to a time like 8 o'clock, 7:45, you're not going to get much benefit from it, but it's still going to disrupt the whole school system. So if you're going to disrupt it, you're better off going with 8:30 or later, because that's going to be what's efficient. The studies that are really interesting are the ones that many school systems have done across the country after they have moved to 8:30 or later. And it has been shown that the adolescents across the board, this applies to all the adolescents, all the students. Across the board, everything seems to get better. Family relationships get better. We were talking earlier about eating with your family and all. That's such an important thing, and we seem to have lost sight of that. But now it gets better if the kids get more sleep. And the teenage years are tough years anyway, and the better that we can make it for them, the better off we'll all be. Some of the things were already mentioned that benefit social and emotional feelings that the kids have are definitely made better by having them more night's sleep. They do better academically. They have one of the things that came out that actually surprised me is that the automobile crashes due to sleepiness with teenagers is markedly reduced. There are some towns that start later than 8:30 have the least number of crashes by teenagers. That's just one benefit, but that one really sticks with me, because if you could change the time and prevent one accident in the course of a year, then I think that we've really done our job. So I think I've talked enough. If anybody has any questions, you can ask me. If I can answer it, I'll be happy to try.
And we will certainly do that. Thank you so much, Dr. Perriello. Just continuing along now with our panel, we also have Lisa Burns with us today, who is a principal within the Milford Schools. And Lisa, a very a very interesting perspective. Obviously, you're there day to day with the students. You also have the understanding from the faculty and teacher perspective as well. What can you talk about maybe from that perspective of how, as this has continued to be talked about, how this might affect the day to day for the students and also for the faculty as well?
Okay, so I'm actually the principal at an elementary school with kindergartners through 2nd grade, so I can talk primarily about how it would affect students that are 5, 6, and 7 years old, but I do have adolescents of my own that would be affected by a school start change as well. I think one thing that we as a group talked a lot about was what's best for our students, what's best for our children, and I think a lot of our conversations got a lot of our conversations we had a lot of conversations that went all over the place because we were really concerned about how it might impact families and how it might impact our community and after school programs and after school jobs and sports and all of those things, and those are all very important factors for us and for our children and our families and the community. However, we just tried to keep bringing ourselves back to what's best for the students, what's best for them. And as Dr. Perriello had said, a later start time for adolescents and teenagers is what is best for them. So we are aware that there will be many challenges presented to families and within our community should school start time shift in any way. However, we really just continue to bring ourselves back to what do we think is best for students and then really work through that as a group and with the community. And I think that the surveys, Mr. Consigli, really did show. The first question was that people understood what the American Academy of Pediatrics was saying, and they were in support of it, but then all the other hardships that Mr. Legore had mentioned come into play for families. So I think another misconception may be that if the high school, middle school goes earlier, that would, or later, later, that maybe the elementary schools might go earlier, and that is not something that's been determined at this time. So we're still working through those pieces as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that elementary school would automatically go earlier. It's still all on the table to make the decision what's best for all of our students.
Thank you so much. Next on our panel, we have Len Morcone, who's the transportation coordinator for the district. And when you talk about challenges potentially with changing the start times for schools, obviously transportation is a huge component of that. Can you talk a little bit about that perspective, Len, and the possible changes and how the district would be able to handle those?
Well, if they change the time of the high school to a later start, and as Ms. Burns said, if we change the elementary, we'll say to a later start, we'd still be within the 2-tier system. So therefore, there'd be no impact of cost to the town and really no disruption in the bus service. If we flipped it the other way, same thing. As long as we stay with a 2-tier system. And the 2-tier system is kindergarten through grade 5 and grade 6 through grade 12. Okay, so we're still using the same amount of buses and personnel, so there'd be no impact. I know one of the things that people talked about was traffic, but if you look at traffic, we create most of the traffic. We go up and down Purchase Street, we're rolling roadblocks, okay? So one of the things with a later start, it would probably give more people a chance to get to work and clear some of the roads for us, okay? Our areas around the schools are always going to be congested no matter what. Just that's New England schools. There's nothing you could do. There's not a lot of land, and we create all that stuff. But I really don't see a big impact with transportation with it.
Thank you so much, Len. And finally, we have Nicole Rosa, who's a professor of psychology at Worcester State University, also a parent. And so two unique perspectives there, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about maybe your initial reactions to this potential change within the schools?
Sure. So similar to Dr. Perriello, I've read a lot of the research in my work and in my teaching about the benefits of delaying the school start time or having a later start time for adolescents. And what we know today about the adolescent brain is we know so much more today than we did in the past, and that their brains really are still developing during that time. It's not done. They're still developing, and so getting a good night's sleep is really, really important. And they do have delayed sleep cycles compared to younger kids. So from that perspective, I thought it was a great idea. From a parent perspective, I have 3 teenage boys, and so I see it for them as well, that they're having a harder time going to sleep as early as they should in order to get up when they need to, and they're struggling to get up in the morning. So I think I see that benefit as well. But then also, I hear from talking to friends in the community and the concerns that people have about the impact that this is going to have on sports and on their kids that need to go to work after school, and on their kids who maybe are in middle school or high school and are responsible for getting younger siblings off the bus. If we were to have the elementary schools start sooner than the middle and high school. So I hear all of those concerns, and I appreciate change is always hard, and people always struggle with that. But again, people do seem to recognize that once they get to adolescence, they really do need that extra sleep, and that it would be beneficial for those kids.
The Milford Regional Medical Center Auxiliary recently held a fundraiser over at the Crystal Room. The event helped raise money for causes over at Milford Regional and also helped those in attendance get some fashion tips for the spring and summer months. For more on the story, here is Ryan Ferrell with her latest Milford TV member report.
So I'm here at the Crystal Room this evening with Kathy and all of these other bedazzled, glitzy gal pals. So Kathy, what is going on tonight?
Well, tonight we are having a really fun event. It's a fundraiser for the Milford Regional Medical Center to raise funds for this cause. And tonight they asked us to come and have a 2019 spring-summer fashion show. And we brought a little representation of what we do sell at Catalina's Boutique. And we brought jewelry, purses, a lot of apparel. We sell ladies' apparel, and everything tonight is 20% off for all these lovely people who have donated their time and money to come tonight.
Tell me what the auxiliary's role was in putting together this soiree.
Well, one of our top members, Terry Sharp, really knew the boutique and suggested we do this, so we jumped at it. It's a good fundraiser. The auxiliary took on a $125,000 pledge for the 4th floor in the hospital. And the 4th floor has been gutted and done over for palliative care and oncology patients.
That's absolutely remarkable. And has this been one of the auxiliary's biggest projects ever?
I think so. Years ago, go back before I was close to being born, they took on the cafeteria. But no, this is a big one, and it's meaningful. Everybody either has a family member, friend that's involved with that.
That's very special, and it's incredible when we can put the fun in fundraising, and not only fun, but the fashionista fun in fundraising.
Yes, for sure. But I really want to make sure that Terry Sharp and Gail Cromaldi get appreciated for all the work they did to put this together.
We brought in many of our friends, and some people have said this is a wonderful get-together because the majority of the people that are here know one another, and actually they remember a little history in Milford when I guess there was a shop downtown, it was Kay's, and they always had a fashion show, and it was a very popular event. So this sort of harkens back to that event, and everybody has been, the feedback that we've gotten is that they're very excited about coming to this, and hopefully this will be a ongoing event. It will be a yearly event, I hope.
So Sherry, tell me a little bit about your involvement with this evening's fashion show.
Well, Kathy and I are friends, and also I help her at her boutique in Northbridge. So she asked me if I would help out for this great cause. So of course I would come out and dress fun and think spring and come out and help Kathy for a great cause.
Well, your dress is certainly thinking and looking spring already. Well, everything that's displayed here is beautiful. And where are you located?
We're located on Route 122 in Northbridge. The exact address is 1682 Providence Road in Northbridge. And we've been there for about 4.5 years, and we're very happy to be here in the Milford community.
How much planning and time went into this on all of your ends?
I think Kathy's been planning this for weeks, and then just having the models come in and try on all the clothes and the accessories to see what fits them right and what looks great. And it takes weeks of planning and getting it all together.
Students from Hopedale Junior Senior High School need help from the greater Milford community to raise money to help get them to Orlando for a once-in-a-lifetime educational opportunity. To share all of the details on how residents can help, here are 3 students from Hopedale's DECA chapter.
Hi, my name is Matt Crapo.
And I'm Lucia Rollo.
And I'm Robbie Seafring.
And we are all seniors at Hopedale Junior Senior High School, as well as we all participate in the Hopedale DECA chapter at our school as well. We are here fundraising because us 3, along with 10 other students, placed to compete at the International DECA competition this upcoming April in Orlando, Florida.
DECA is a business organization across the state as well as the country where students compete in projects and or role plays. These projects help kids practice their business skills for their future.
Yeah, so this year as a part of the competition, Robbie, Lucia, and I put together a 6-month financial literacy campaign for a competitive event called Financial Literacy Promotion Plan. And so this campaign included community events, in-school events. We went down to the Hopedale Elementary School to talk with the kids down there. And so our culminating event was actually the 2018 Financial Literacy Fair, where junior and senior students at Hopedale High School had the opportunity to go around to various booths where they were assigned a job and salary, and they essentially had to pay a month's worth of expenses to get a little experience about what life will be like after college. And so we used this campaign for our state competition, and it actually earned us a first place finish.
And the 10 other students that are competing at the international competition placed as well in the state competition, just in their own projects, in their own competitive fields and events. During this week-long trip in Orlando, Florida, we compete and present our product to a judge again, as well as participate in some leadership academies held at the competition. The sponsorship deadline is April 24th, and those sponsorship forms can be found on our website. And basically there's different sponsorship levels going from bronze to gold, and each of those levels have different amenities that can be put on, such as having your logo on the back of our t-shirts that we wear all around Orlando, which is a pretty cool amenity.
The best way to donate is through our GoFundMe, which you can check out in the link below. And also, if you'd like to follow our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram.
Any donation is greatly appreciated, and thank you for watching.
After a pair of road games to open their 2019 season, the Hawks made their Pheno Field debut this past Wednesday as they welcomed in the Foxboro Warriors. Despite an 0-3 start, the Warriors came in with an offense capable of doing damage, and they would end up showcasing it right away in the first inning against Danny Corsini. After Corsini was able to strike out Anthony Malika to open the game, Thomas Marcichello would send a grounder to short. Matt Shaver would field it cleanly, but his throw to first would skip away, allowing Marcichello to reach and advance to second. Foxboro's number 3 hitter Michael Devlin would then hit a slow roller perfectly placed through the right side for a hit that would bring Marcichello around to score the first run of the game. Devlin would eventually wind up at third with less than 2 outs, where Joe Cavallari would drive him in on a sacrifice fly that would give the Warriors a 2-0 lead before the top of the first inning would come to an end. After committing a pair of errors in the first, Milford's defense would continue to have issues in the second. The number 9 hitter Adam Lanktot would hit a soft liner to second that would bounce in and out of the glove of Justin Appleby before rolling out to second base, allowing Foxboro to place a pair of runners on with one away. Marcichello would end up capitalizing on the opportunity, driving a ball through the left side, and another run would score for Foxboro to give them a 3-0 lead. Meanwhile, after cruising through a 1-2-3 first inning, Anthony Malika would issue a free pass to Milford captain Tyler Almeida to lead off the home half of the inning. Malika would then get the next two Milford hitters, leaving the inning up to one of the young players looking to make a big impact on Milford's varsity roster. He's gotten off to a good start with the baseball team as well. And sends a drive now out to left field. This sends Kaiser going back. It's over his head and is going to roll off towards the fence. Scoring with no problem is Tyler Almeida, as Scudo will hold up at second base with an RBI double, and that gets Milford on the scoreboard. It's now 3-1. Carter Scudo would end up advancing to third on a passed ball before scoring on a wild pitch, as Milford would cut the Foxboro lead to 3-2. After Milford started to shift momentum, Foxboro would take it right back in the third. Joe Cavallari would lead off the inning with a ringing double off Corsini to immediately get a rally started. Two batters later, Cavallari would come home on an RBI base hit from Sean Yost. The Warriors would get another run in the inning thanks to a two-out RBI from Brian Duncan to once again stake themselves to a 3-run lead. After two more Milford errors led to a 6th run crossing the plate for Foxboro in the 4th inning, the Hawks were desperate for something to turn their luck around. They would get just what they needed thanks to an unexpected bout of wildness from Foxboro starter Anthony Malika. Malika would issue 3 consecutive walks to start the home half of the 4th, giving Milford a golden opportunity to get back in the game. After Malika battled back to get a strikeout against Carter Scudo, Luke Rosa would drive a ball out to left deep enough to bring a run home to make it 6-3. Malika would then walk a 4th batter in the inning to reload the bases and force Foxboro coach Derek Suez to make a pitching change. Milford would then use some unconventional means to keep the rally going. Prescott winds and fires. That pitch is going to grab a piece of Marcolini. He will head down to first base, and that forces in a run. The bases loaded, hit by pitch. Here comes another 1-2 pitch, and Shaver taps it out in front of the plate. It's McGinnis who picks it up, fires to first base, in and out of the glove of the first baseman. And now no one can find the ball. And finally picking it up behind the first base bag is Yost. But 2 runs will come home meanwhile for the Scarlet Hawks. And that's going to now tie this game up at 6, so how about that? The game would stay tied until the top of the 6th, where Walks would get Milford into trouble this time. With 2 outs, Nick Marcolini, who took the mound in relief, would issue a walk to Sean Yost with the bases loaded to give the Warriors the lead back at 7-6. It would be a 1-run deficit for Milford when they came to the plate in the bottom of the 7th. Marcolini would lead off the inning and he'd hit a grounder to short. The ball would take a high hop on Anthony Malika, whose throw to first base would be wild, and Marcolini would wind up at second base. Moments later, Foxboro reliever Cameron Prescott would be charged with a balk, placing the tying run at third base with nobody out. After an infield single placed the winning run on, Prescott would deal a strike into Colby Perez, but the ball would skip away from the catcher and Marcolini would come home to tie the game. Ultimately, the 7th inning would come down to a 2-out bases-loaded opportunity for Carter Scudo. Scudo would get a hold of a pitch, sending it out to right center. Zach Jenkins would be there to make the play, but the ball would pop out of his glove, dropping to the turf, and Matt Shaver would cross the plate with the winning run. In a game that had more than its share of sloppy play, it was only fitting that an error would lead to a walk-off win for the Scarlet Hawks. Milford improves to 2-1 on the year as they defeat Foxboro by a final score of 8-7. We also had coverage of the boys volleyball team this week. The Hawks hosted one of their new Tri-Valley League rivals in the Norwood Mustangs, and Milford continued their red-hot start to the season. Milford needed just over an hour to dispatch Norwood in 3 sets to improve to a perfect 6-0 on the season. That is all we have for you this week. We will be back with our next new edition of The Informer on April 26th. So enjoy the school vacation week, and we will talk to you again in 2 weeks. From all of us here at Milford TV, this is Tim Coet saying have a great week. So long, everybody.